Hello everyone, it's Susie Peacock. I'm a Quality Enhancement Specialist from QAA Scotland, and today for the Tertiary Enhancement Project, I'm in conversation with Kirsty from the University of Aberdeen. Kirsty, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us. I really appreciate the time you're giving to us today. And I was wondering if I could just ask you to give us a little information about your role at Aberdeen.
Thank you. It's so nice to be part of this. So, I have two roles. Like most people in academia, multiple hats. So my main roles, I am an educator within the School of Medicine, Medical Sciences and Nutrition, where I teach predominantly around research design, and I'm teaching mostly postgraduate students, medical students, etc., about how to design research. And I'd say my main priority there is actually to get them past the fear of research and to recognize that it's something quite enjoyable. So a lot of them come with a lot of fear about what research is and research design. And then my second role is I'm also the Dean for Educational Innovation. And that role gives me a wider university remit where I'm really looking at how do we innovate in our teaching, how do we enhance what we do, how do we evaluate what we're doing. And a big part of that will be around sort of the digital world, using digital tech in our delivery, but also how we upskill both our staff and students in sort of digital education as well.
Gosh, that's a lot to balance. That really challenging. And I'm interested in obviously the digital role that you have. And I was wondering, what recent work are you doing in that area?
So I mean, I guess at the university, like everyone, there's always a lot of work on generative AI going on just now, and how we can bring that into our teaching practice, how we can look at that with our assessment integrity, etc. Um, and but then if I think actually in the digital world, it's a piece of work that I've been doing over a longer period, but which is probably fresh in my mind again because we're just into the new term, and I always get excited at the start of new terms. Is that the way I choose to teach? Is that instead of having my two classes, so my research design class, I would have run an on-campus course and I would run an online course previously. And I made a decision well before COVID, thankfully, to blend them into one course. So all of my students come into one course at the same time. And the design, of course, I guess closest would be flipped classroom in that the material is available. It's a series of podcasts, reading materials, activities. So very much designed as an online, but there is synchronous sessions each week, which my on-campus students must come to, and that's their attendance and register. My online students can choose to either come synchronously if the time fits because of different time zones and things, or they can choose to catch up later. And then
I must ask you, what happens to the students who are typically not on campus? How many do you find that they attend?
So actually, the ones who make a choice to attend synchronously then would tend to have the equivalent sort of attendance rate as my on-campus students. So they'd be attending sort of more than 75% of the sessions. So once they've said, actually, this is a way of learning that works for me, and but the ones where it just doesn't fit, because best will in the world, and we look at trying to timetable and things. You know, if you're in Australia, it's going to be hard to make a time zone to work, and also if you're in Australia and you work during the working out, you know, it's so there's difficulties. So those students we offer a couple of different ways for them to engage. So they can do the boring. You can watch a video and catch up later, but it's a bit dull. So actually, because we do a lot of activities, they can still have the activity worksheets. Some of them will make a choice to get together with other students and say, well, actually, we'll get together. They can do the activity as a little group. And I always then record the sort of, here's what I think you should have found, and they can watch that at the end. But generally, the students who come, the group that I'm probably really interested in is those ones who make a choice to come synchronously, who are able to fit it in how they interact then with my on-campus students. And they're fascinating.
Do you find that works?
It does. It works really well. It works better than I think I see as an educator. What I mean by that is the feedback I get at the end from online students is things like, you know, this is the first time I felt like a real student, or I feel like I'm actually at Aberdeen with you. I feel like I'm studying with others. And for some students, so my course, with the online courses, they tend to take it part-time, so they take it over multiple years. My on-campus students always take this course as their first course at the beginning of because they're mostly full-time, but the online students tend to take it about the beginning of their second year normally.
Yeah.
And these students are saying things like, I've been studying for a whole year and I haven't spoken to another student. And this is the first time. And that's what makes them come back. It's nothing to do with my teaching. I'd like to say it's, oh, my great, amazing teaching. It's not. It's the idea that they can interact with other students. And that interaction might be by speaking, but a lot of it is still just typing, chat in the side of the Teams call and things, but they feel there's others there doing this at the same time with them, which,
That
yeah.
sounds so, in other words, you're sort of running a hybrid session, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because you're beaming the students in from wherever.
Yep.
And you've also got your face-to-face students in Aberdeen.
Mm-hmm.
And do they do much group work in your synchronous sessions, or do they just tend to?
So the way I've got it working is the first part of the session, I do the sort of the tutorial element where I use like a participant response system. We use Ombia in Aberdeen, but there's lots of different tools.
Yeah.
So basically it's like, here's a question, multiple choice answers. If the whole class gets it right, we move on. If we're struggling, we stop and we discuss, because that straight away doesn't matter whether you're in the class or you're online, you're all using the exact same system. So we do that as a way of me making sure that they're all picking up the key learning points that I'd expect them to cover that week ahead of the class. And that also, I think, gets them started. So that's when they start seeing that chat happening on the side, when the students will start to type messages and go, oh, I totally would, I got that one wrong, I'd have gone with this. And then the second part is where I move them into actual groups, because that is harder. And predominantly the groups structure by on-campus students are grouped with on-campus students, online with online, and they go into breakout rooms. Some of the things I've found to make that work really well is it always takes longer for an online group to get established and get going with the activity. Probably, in my view, it's about 25% extra time needed. So what I've now got is really clear worksheets, which tells them, you know, first 5 minutes, you're going to introduce yourself, you're going to set somebody as a chairperson or whatever, or timekeeper, whatever the task is. At this point, you're going to do these sets, this activity, this will take 30 minutes, and then you need to move on to this, and then I'll bring you back. So because they've got that ahead, they don't spend the first 10 minutes going, what are we meant to be doing? But, you know, so giving them that instructions ahead really helps.
Clear instructions.
Yeah, and
they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you just give extra time.
Exactly. And I also I've discovered that I have to make the groups online slightly larger. Because in campus, a group of 6, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 who will at least get into a discussion. I think you need a group of about 10 online to guarantee you're going to get 2 or 3 that will discuss. I've also stopped. I originally started with putting them into I arrange your groups. I've stopped doing that now, and I make that there's rooms, and they can select the room. So then within a few weeks, they've worked out that, you know, Susie and I work really well together. I'll join the same group as her because I know she's going to interact. And they've got freedom to move around. So if you're in a group and nobody's talking, leave that group, go to another one. And actually, that seems to have really helped. And then about halfway through the semester, I mix it up a bit. And then I start getting my on-campus and online students in the same groups.
How does that work? Fascinating.
It's variable. So by then, because I'm doing research design, you have to have a reason for bringing them together like that. There has to be a purpose. So then what it is based on their design. So everyone who's doing a systematic review is going to come into this space and interact. Everyone, so there's a sort of image to their group. There's a reason for that group. It's not just it's a cluster of students. And there'll be a tutor there. And then what I've got is I've tried a few different ways of doing this. So I've played around with the robots. So the little robots who come in and the student is inside a robot in some ways, and that was fun. Technology's moved on so much now, and like things like Teams is so good that actually all I have is like some laptops on the table, and you know the students who are online are on there, the students who are in campus are there. As long as you've got a room that's big enough to get the space, so you don't get lots of interaction with noise.
You get headphones and things like that. Otherwise, I can hear what the other group is saying.
Exactly, and then they work away in the group. But I do think for me, I would never try that at the beginning of the term. And there has to be a reason why they come together. You have to really spell out to the students of, you are all doing this same thing. So you bring an expertise, you've got a value in this team, and then that works.
So the real focus, I know that I'm going to be talking about, for example, systematic review. I know that other people are doing it. They've got things to contribute for me. I've got things to contribute for them. End of story. Well, that makes perfect sense. That is fascinating. Have you had any feedback besides the online students saying, yes, it's great, I feel like I'm part of the community?
Yeah, so we've been doing various evaluations with that course for a while now, looking at both the students online and on campus. And I mean, other feedback we've had from the on-campus students is the opportunity to get a bigger network.